Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about co-sleeping with baby. It'll be my co-sleeping journey with my last two babies, mainly Knox, but I did do a little bit of this with Jade, and why we chose it, how we do it. And then I'm also going to talk to you guys about some resources that I have for you guys to look up. I'll leave them down in the description box for you. I'll have some on Instagram and then some websites that you can look up, like how to co-sleep with your baby safely. And I will definitely kind of give you guys some of those examples of what they've said on these websites. Obviously, this is my opinion. These are things that I have done. I know that this topic can be very taboo for some. For many, many years, it has been a no-no to do this. I think that now it's finally becoming more normalized, especially if you know how to do it safely and you feel comfortable doing it. There should be no reason to be ashamed about this. I feel like it is one of the best things that I've done with my son, especially for bonding, for breastfeeding. There's so many benefits to it, but there also are downsides. But that comes with anything with a baby. There are so many different things that you can do with your baby, and there are always going to be pros and cons to it. My kids are outside the door. It's getting later in the day and they get very rowdy in the late afternoon, evening. You will hear them probably fighting and yelling and having a good time, playing, all of those things out in the living room. I'm sorry about that if that bothers you, but there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So of course, before we start, please give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I would love to have you here. And of course, I have tons of other motherhood, pregnancy, and postpartum content on my channel for you guys. So head over there and check it out after you've hit that subscribe button. Okay, so first off, I want to say co-sleeping is not for every parent. There are some things like guidelines that you should follow, and if you can't do these things, then you should probably not be doing co-sleeping with your baby. Now, there are also a lot of different ways to co-sleep with your baby. The most known, like when you say co-sleep, people automatically think baby and you, or baby you and your husband, whatever it may be, are all in the same bed. And that is what I have done with my babies. There are other ways, and they are also called co-sleeping. So if you have one of those little, like they call them sidecars or little bassinet crib things that are literally up next to the bed with you, some of them have like an opening on one side so it comes right up to the bed and there's no railing between your bed and baby's crib. Co-sleeping, which also means that baby sleeps in the same room as you but just not in the same bed as you. And then you have like bed sharing, which is, you know, if your kids are a little bit older and they like to come in and sleep in your bed some nights. So there are a lot of different definitions of co-sleeping, but the one that I'm going to specifically be talking about today is actually having a baby in your bed with you. First of all, let me go over some of the benefits. I'm also going to go over the safe ways to sleep with your baby in the bed with you, and then I will talk about our journey and how we've done it. Number one benefit is more sleep, not only for you, but also your baby. Your baby lived 9 months in your womb. All they heard was your heartbeat sounds, all the sounds that come from you as mama, your breathing, your heartbeat, the warmth of your body, all of those things. If you have a newborn that's just come out and they are sleeping with you all the time, they are still getting those familiar things for them, and that makes them more content. It makes them happier to be able to sleep and be comfortable. And in turn, if baby is sleeping, then you are sleeping as well, and you're not having to get up and walk to another room, or even get up and walk across the room to get the baby, and then you have to change them, and then you have to feed them, and then you put them back down, and then you go back to your bed. That is one of the reasons how you're going to lose lots of sleep. It just takes more time to do all that rather than to just feed your baby and change your baby right there with you. That goes into benefit number two, is breastfeeding becomes a whole lot easier, because if baby is right next to you, you don't have to get up and go across the room, like I said, or sit him down in a chair and start rocking. Since baby is right in the bed with you when you're breastfeeding, for one, it makes it easier because literally all you have to do is feed them right then and there. You don't have to keep getting up. Number two, it actually helps to keep your breast milk flowing. And usually around the nighttime and early hours of the morning is when your baby gets their biggest feeding, is when you produce the most milk. So having them so conveniently right there to be able to feed whenever they need it is just the best. I loved it, and it really does help your milk supply. The other thing to that is your baby can actually regulate the flow of milk coming through their mouth a lot easier when you're on your side laying down. For you, the flow is going to be slower. Instead of you were to sit like this and like have your baby on you, then it's like gravity is pushing it down, so it's like really shooting down their throat. Whereas when they're on their side, it kind of flows a little slower and a little easier, which definitely helps with gas. So they probably won't be burping as much or have any gas bubbles in their tummy, because they're able to suck at their pace and get that down without getting too much airflow or too much milk coming in at one time and maybe choking on it. That's another reason why I really like to feed my babies in the bed and laying down, especially at nighttime when we're sleeping together. Okay, benefit number 3 is it can actually help reduce the risk of SIDS. SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome, and there really is not enough information on this other than it literally means just sudden. A lot of times people don't know why it happened or how it happened. One of the reasons could be suffocation, so maybe they, a blanket got over their face or a pillow, they were laying on their tummy and they had their face in the mattress. Now there is obviously, if you are co-sleeping, you are not aware of your body enough to not roll over your baby, that would totally be categorized in that that could happen if you know yourself. And that's where I would say that people are able to choose whether or not to do this with their baby, because if you know that you're either a lighter sleeper or you know that you're more aware of your body while you're asleep and where you're laying and how you're moving, or maybe you just don't move that much when you sleep anyways, then co-sleeping is probably going to be totally fine for you. Now, if you know that when you fall asleep, you sleep hard and you move a lot and you're not really aware of things, then I probably wouldn't recommend co-sleeping, just because of the fact that you would be terrified of accidentally laying on your baby or rolling on your baby or putting too much of your body on top of them or something like that, which can definitely happen. But the reason that the risk is lower for SIDS when you're co-sleeping is because of the breastfeeding. Because if you are breastfeeding, if baby is sucking on passy or sucking on your nipple, then they're less likely to fall into that really, really deep sleep and end up just stop breathing. So that is one of the benefits, but it can also be a risk as well. Either way, that's where I would say the biggest way to know whether or not you should be doing that or that you could be co-sleeping with your baby is knowing yourself and knowing how you sleep with your kid in the bed. I know that I am a very light sleeper. I think a lot of moms are, especially if you already have children, because your ears are constantly listening for a baby cry or your toddler crying in the other room or your kids getting up and needing to go to the bathroom, and I notice them every single time. So it just depends on the person, but that's how I am. So I knew that with my baby, I would be able to tell, if he was moving around and I also don't move a lot when I sleep. And I think that's just because I have kids and I'm always very aware of my body. If I fall asleep on my left side, I wake up on my left side. Like there's no changing. I might change to my back and then back to my left, but I never sleep and then roll over all the way to my stomach. Okay, the next one is going to be like a nighttime separation anxiety. So if your baby just cries a lot when they're not with you, if you're constantly having to get up and rock them to sleep, lay them down, and then they wake up and notice that you're not there and cry again, they don't want to be without you, this definitely is going to help that. It's going to help it because your baby's going to be right next to you. They're going to be able to smell your scent and feel your body warmth. They're going to hear your heartbeat, hear you breathing, like all of those things really, really help that. And I think another thing that's really hard, a lot of people think, well, if you co-sleep with your baby, they're gonna grow up to wanting to sleep with you at all times. That may be the case for a few kids, but majority of the time, that is not the case. A lot of children co-sleep, and then as they get older, they actually want to be in their own bed. They actually want to be away from mommy because they've already had that time and they're done. They see you all day. They're like, all right, now I need my own space and my own time away from mommy and daddy. So it can happen, but it could also be the opposite. I definitely wouldn't base your decision off of that alone. I know that with my first child, I did not co-sleep. For one, he was definitely more of an independent baby. He still is that way to this day. And he didn't like to snuggle a lot when he was little. He didn't want me holding him all the time. So co-sleeping just wasn't gonna work out for us, and that was great. But I also at the time felt like, oh, you gotta have your baby in their own crib like by month 3. 3 so that they learn how to sleep in their own room and they're independent. And I was just so like steadfast on that. Like, I want to make sure that I teach him how to sleep in his own crib and soothe himself and blah blah blah. And I to this day hate that I did that. I wish I would have let it just go and let it be on his time and figure it out. And he was actually a great sleeper, and it actually turned out it was really easy to get him to sleep in his own crib. I just felt like I pushed him away too fast. I wish I would have used that first year of his life to just hang out with him and be with him and work on breastfeeding or work on other things other than that. So the next benefit is that baby wakes up happy, because the minute that they wake up, they see mommy's face, they are gonna be happy babies. And that is so true, y'all. Oh my gosh, how many times I've woken up with baby Knox and the first thing he does is smile at me, and it melts my heart. Oh my gosh, it is the best thing in the world, y'all. I love it so much. So now we're gonna move on to the safety precautions, I guess, or the safety rules that you should go by or try to go by when you are bed sharing or co-sleeping with your baby. And this is for any baby's age, so from newborn all the way to 2-3 years old, whatever it is that you're doing. I don't think that I probably won't have my baby sleeping in my bed when he's 2 years old. I will have him in his own crib by then, hopefully in his own room. But for now, for sure, I mean, he's 10 months old right now, so he'll definitely be with me past his first year of life. I did have him with me like from the get-go, from newborn stage. I think the first like 2 weeks I tried to put him in a crib or bassinet next to the bed every once in a while, and it just didn't work out for us. So I was like, you know what, I'm breastfeeding anyways, I'm trying to feed him on demand, I'm gonna, especially at nighttime, I'm just gonna put him in the bed with me. Okay, so one of the precautions is going to be making sure that the bed is more of a firm bed. Baby needs to be sleeping on a firmer surface rather than like a plush surface. And our mattress is kind of like a mix, because I definitely don't like a super firm bed, but it's not pillow top or anything like that. So I definitely would make sure that your mattress is pretty firm, at least where baby is going to be laying with you. And the main reason for that is you don't want them to like sink into the bed and have it so plush around their head that it could cover their nose in any way or their mouth in any way and make it to where they can't breathe. The next one is going to be that baby should always be sleeping on their back, and that goes for any baby. They always tell you that, if you put them in the crib, they should be on their back until they're a little bit older. And if they like to sleep on their tummies, then when they're older you can start doing that, because they can learn how to roll over, or making sure there's nothing around their face and that they're not going to put their head like straight into the mattress. But then whenever you go to breastfeed, I would just turn him a little bit slightly towards me so that his head and his chest was turned towards me to eat. And then once he was done eating, he would stop and then he would roll back to his back to sleep. So that is the best position for them. The next thing is to make sure that your bed is large enough to have you and your baby, and then if your partner sleeps in the bed, and that there's plenty of room. You guys aren't just like stuffed up together, because that definitely would cause you to, there could be a night where you accidentally roll or you turn, baby gets pushed off the bed. If it's 2 adults in the bed and a baby, it should be a king size bed to fit the 3 of you nice and safely, with plenty of room in between. So that is what we do have. I think we have a California king, but we have a king size bed, so we have plenty of space for us. You always want to place your baby next to you, so you don't want to have baby in the middle of the bed and have mommy on one side and daddy on the other side, mainly because daddies are not going to be as in tune to baby sleeping there. Now, I'm not saying all of them, because I know that some will be, but a lot of the time mommy is the one that's going to be the most in tune of where baby is and making sure that you're not rolling on your baby. That also goes for if you have any other children in your bed. You don't want to have the baby in between you and your other child, because their arm could just fling, or their leg or something, and hit the baby. You don't want that. So you always want to make sure baby is obviously closest to you, but also away from anybody else. And then that goes into the next one, is not putting pillows around super close to your baby. You want to make sure that they're not going to roll off the bed, which if they're newborns, they're not going to roll anywhere. But just to be safe, either having the bed up against the wall, but that means flush. Like if you have a bed frame and it doesn't go all the way to the wall and there's like a crack, back. That would not be good because if baby somehow gets in there and you don't know, they could end up suffocating like that. So the best way is to have some kind of railing on the side of baby, or with the little mesh thing. You can get them for toddler beds and stuff too, so you can put them on your bed. All right, y'all, so moving on to our journey of co-sleeping. With my first, I was never even thinking about co-sleeping. I mean, I remember sitting myself up in the bed to breastfeed him and almost falling asleep with him in my arms, and then having to get up and put him in his bed and, you know, burp him, all of that, put him in his little crib. And then with my second, I would do the same thing, and I was exhausted all of the time. I felt like, oh my gosh, if I fall asleep in bed with him, that's so bad. I'm a horrible mom for doing that. And then I had my third baby, and I was way more relaxed with her. I had the Snuggle Me that we would use all the time to lay her in there, sometimes for nap time. When I would be sitting next to her in the bed, you know, watching a show or something, I would lay her in there to sleep, or to, you know, suck on her binky. And so at nighttime, what I started doing is I would swaddle her, I would lay her on her back in the Snuggle Me. And disclaimer, Snuggle Me's are not meant to be used as a sleep aid or for babies to sleep in, especially, you know, if you're asleep too and unattended. I will say that is a disclaimer from them, but use your own judgment. You're the mama. I used it for that, even though they said, you know, they're not supposed to. But I think that also goes for, because the stuff that's around them, when you put them in the Snuggle Me, it kind of lifts around them and makes them feel secure, like they're wrapped all the way around, but it's not so close to where it's gonna like smother their faces. It doesn't move or anything, but I could see why, you know, if you put them in the wrong position, or if they can somehow turn their body and get their face stuck side somehow and get suffocated, I understand that. But with her, I made sure that she was swaddled, her, you know, she couldn't move, and I would lay her on her back, and that way she could sleep in there. And she definitely liked it, but she was hard. She did not sleep very well, especially in those first like few months. She was not a good sleeper at nighttime. She was constantly waking up, and I would try to do everything, you know, I would rock her, I would bounce her in the bed and do this and trying to get her to fall asleep. I was also breastfeeding with her, and eventually I started to lay down on my side to breastfeed her because I was getting exhausted sitting upright with pillows propped behind me and her right in my arms like this. And I would always end up falling asleep like that, which is so dangerous because if I was totally out of it and dropped my arms, she would roll off my body. My husband would always come in and kind of wake me up or grab her from me and put her down. So I thought, okay, I need to stop doing that. That is just not okay. So I started laying on my side. If I was that tired and I knew like, oh my gosh, I can't keep my eyes open, I would lay on my side and I would lay her and breastfeed her while we were laying together. And I started to realize like, this is way easier, number one. Number two, I know I don't move at all when I'm sleeping, and especially if my baby is in the bed with me, I'm too afraid to move and my body just like is stiff. So, and I like to sleep on my side anyways. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. I'll sleep on my side. I have her right up next to me, and I used to swaddle her, and I started realizing that she was getting too hot. So I wouldn't swaddle her if I knew that I was going to have her sleep with me and next to me. If I knew it was one of those nights, I always started the night out that way, and then if she started waking up a lot, then I would just unswaddle her, put her next to me, and lay with her. And she started sleeping longer. She would sleep better. We actually didn't have to breastfeed as much during the nighttime because she was sleeping longer. As that went on, I would also start doing it for nap times, and I would do it enough to where I could get her to fall asleep, and then I would kind of like crawl out of the bed and get out of the bed. I eventually with her actually got her in her crib when she was about 5 months old, I think 5 to 6 months old. I started getting her in her crib. So by that time, she really didn't sleep in the bed with me anymore, unless for some reason for a nap time I was tired too and I just laid with her in the bed. Now fast forward to my son Knox, who is now 10 months old. I knew from the get-go that I want to do really well with my breastfeeding this time. I was breastfeeding and pumping during the day, and then at nighttime I was just going to feed on demand. And I already knew like I'm definitely going to co-sleep. Number one was the reason was we don't have enough rooms in this house to have like another nursery. I thought, well, I'll get a crib and I'll put a crib in our room. It'll be the master / nursery room. Time went on and I just never ordered the crib that I wanted. And then more time went on. I thought, well, I'll order it now. And then I would wait and things would happen. And as that time was going, I really didn't have anywhere else. I didn't have a bassinet or anything for him. I had a pack and play. So I thought, well, I could put them in the pack and play. But instead, I knew I was going to be breastfeeding. I would just have him in the bed with me. And again, I did the same thing like I did with my daughter. I had the Snuggle Me in the bed and I would put him in there sometimes, but he just wouldn't sleep for very long. in there. I would swaddle him, he'd fall asleep, and then 5 seconds later he'd be trying to open his eyes and he'd start whining. He didn't want the binky. So then I'd go to feed him again, and it was just like this cycle. And I was like, okay, this is a lot. Like, he's in the bed with me, but it's almost as if I have to keep getting up to walk to the crib because we were doing so many things. It's like unwrap him, change his butt, feed him, try to lay him back down in that thing, and then he wouldn't. So I'd pick him up and I'd bounce him. Finally, I was like, this is not working. Like, I can't, I'm exhausted. I want some sleep too. I want him to get some sleep. So I finally decided, take the snuggle me out of the bed. Y'all, my kids are crazy out there. I've already asked them to be quiet or at least go play in the other room, and they're not listening. So they're gonna be loud. But I finally decided I'm just gonna go ahead and just co-sleep with him. And so I unswaddled him. Sometimes I would, at least at night, to like get him to sleep and keep him comforted. If I knew I'd already breastfed him, then I would lay him with me. But most of the time I didn't, because he is a hot baby. He sweats a lot, so I didn't want him to overheat. But I would lay him with my arm kind of like this, and I would lay him and start feeding him on my side. And then as time went on, if I started feeling like I was about to fall asleep, I would move my arm away from him because I didn't want my arm to be stuck under him. I didn't want his head to be like this, you know, by accident at some point of the night. So I wanted to make sure that he was laying flat. But it just depended on how I was doing, how he was doing. Sometimes I had my arm up under the pillow or under my head, so that way my arm wasn't around him. There was nothing else around him other than he was next to my body when he was feeding. And then when he fell asleep, he would usually turn his head, and so all I had to do was make sure that I could pull my nursing bra down if it wasn't already left like that, my boob just hanging out. And my husband used to always laugh about that. He'd be like, I'd walk in and you both would be passed out and your nipple and your boob are just hanging out, like, hey. I was like, yeah, because I'm too tired to like pull the bra back over or something. I would just immediately start to feed him. He'd start falling asleep. I would start falling asleep, and that was that. I have to say that I did not actually burp him very many times when we would fall asleep like that. I don't remember him ever having any issues, you know, with gas or crying or fussiness because of that. And I really, really think it's because we were laying on our side. So he could regulate the milk. The milk flow was slower because I was laying on my side. Now, what I would do is if I needed to switch sides, then I would kind of just hold him and roll my body as I was holding him and move him over to this right side. And again, I would either put my arm underneath him to get him started and keep him nice and secure and close to me, especially on my right, because I like to sleep on the right side of the bed. So if I'm laying on my right side, then I'm facing my husband. And we do have a king size bed, and what I would do is put the lumbar pillow right in the middle of the bed, or at least closest to him, so that me and baby had plenty of room. But that way, just in case, which my husband actually does not move a lot. He doesn't like fling his arms or his legs. He doesn't roll really far or anything. So I always knew that that probably wasn't going to happen. But just to be safe, I wanted to make sure that there was some kind of barrier in case he accidentally wanted to start rolling over, then his body would stop because there's a pillow there. Or if his arm, you know, went like this, there was a pillow there to stop it and it didn't just smack the baby in the face or something. But there was still plenty of room between the pillow and the baby to where it wasn't like it was going to smother him in any way or get moved over, or he was going to get moved under it. So I did make sure of that. That was one thing I was always making sure of, even in the middle of the night. You know, if I knew we were rolling over, to make sure that there was plenty of space. I would kind of lay with my body as close to the edge as possible so there was a ton of space for baby and nothing else around him or near his head, at least. No blankets, no pillows, nothing. And then, like I said, it would either be arm under him or my arm would be flat. That is literally how I have been doing it from day one. To this day, that is how we sleep. I sleep with him in the bed with me. He's now 10 months old. He can roll over on his own now. When he started getting older and learning how to crawl and being able to roll over and move a lot, I needed to make sure that he wasn't gonna roll off the bed. And that was definitely probably the hardest time in our co-sleeping journey, because I definitely didn't sleep very much then, just because I was always worried and trying to feel for him waking up and making sure that I woke up so that I could feed him immediately so he didn't start moving or rolling. He doesn't roll a lot in his sleep, or at least at that time he didn't roll roll a lot in his sleep. And actually at that time, he was actually really good about sleeping throughout the night. He probably, if he ever woke up, it was only one time. He didn't really roll as much as I thought he was going to at nighttime, but that fear was always there. So I tried to make sure that there was a pillow on the other side of him. There was pillows on the floor just in case, which thank goodness he's never rolling off the bed. That is part of it, and it is hard. So like, I feel like it was way easier to co-sleep with him when he was a newborn up until, what was that, like 5 months, 6 months old. But once he hits that point and they start getting mobile, it definitely gets a little scarier, a little harder. Make sure that, they're not gonna roll off the bed or something's gonna happen. But the only good thing about that also is that they are old enough to roll and to get out of the way. So I don't have as much fear of him being suffocated by something because he can get himself, move it out of the way, get himself out of the way, whatever it may be. And not only do we sleep at night, but he also takes naps in the bed. And so if I ever had to leave the room when he is now mobile and sleeping in here, I would definitely have like the door open. I would lay down with him and breastfeed him to get him to sleep. Then once he fell asleep, I would crawl out of the room. I would leave the door like cracked or open it somewhat. And if it wasn't, because the kids were running around, then I would constantly be coming in here to check on him. Over time, I have taught him how, he would get closer and closer. When we sit on the bed, he would get closer to the edge of the bed. And I could see him, kind of doing this over the edge, looking. And so he could tell that it's gonna drop off. And then I would take his body and I would turn him around. I'd put his legs, tummy down, and then his legs, and let him kind of slide off the side as I'm holding his arms and feel himself slide off the side and hit the bottom. I think that has a lot to do with him now not ever trying to get off the bed or trying to get to the edge of the bed. There are every once in a while an occasion where I see him get too close and I come over and move him. But I feel like, letting your babies and your kids learn on their own, but also teaching them at the same time. So letting him explore and see where the edge of the bed was, but also for me to show him that there is a safe way to get off the bed, which is on your tummy, sliding off, putting your feet down first. He has not, thankfully at nighttime, he has not fallen off the bed. He has not gotten close to the edge at nighttime. And now fast forward to where we are today at 10 months old, I have noticed that we fall asleep, him feeding on my side next to me, and I will wake up with him like his head's over here and his feet are up by my face, and then I'll wake up again to him over here, further away from me, and flip-flopped again. So he's definitely like rolling and moving and like getting up and then laying down and getting up and laying down at nighttime, but he never gets close to the edge. I don't know if that's just luck of the draw for us or if he really is just aware of where the edge is, and so he just sleeps over here instead of over here. There are times where I wake up and go, how the heck did you get over there? Like, you were sleeping here with me, I woke up, and now you're over here with your head down here. Like, there was one time I woke up and he was by my legs. He was on top of the comforter, like no covers on him, nothing on him, and his head was close to my calves and his legs were up by my knees, and I was like, what the heck is going on? He definitely moves a lot more now, but again, I'm not as worried just because he's older. He can move himself, get out of the way. I still sleep like a stick. I don't move when I'm sleeping, so it's not like I'm gonna hit him or anything. But yeah, so that's been our journey. I love it. I have to say, the bonding with your baby from being a newborn, for the breastfeeding experience, the bonding experience, and all of that literally is like my favorite thing. I love that I was able to breastfeed him as long as I have, and I also feel like that's one of the reasons why I've been able to breastfeed for so long this time around. Definitely the longest I ever have gone is because of the co-sleeping, and be able to co-sleep at night, and then also for nap times during the day. Now I only do like about one nap time a day that I sleep with, not sleep with him, but lay with him and feed him. The rest of the time he usually gets a bottle, but I really feel like that is the reason why we were so successful with our breastfeeding journey this time around. And then also just the bonding experience and feeling so connected and close to him. I love those moments, waking up in the morning and seeing him happy and seeing him, awake and looking at me. Actually, that's another thing, is I've noticed that he's woken up before me in the mornings, and he literally will sit next to me and just like play with his hands, play with the bed, and wait for me to wake up. And I'll wake up and I'll say good morning, and he'll look at me and get so excited and like hop on top of me, and it is the sweetest thing in the world. And I just think, how cute is it? Like, he woke up and he's just chilling, waiting for mommy. It's so cute. So I think that is so sweet. But I do want to point something out. Just because your baby doesn't sleep with you doesn't mean that you're not going to have the same bonding experience with that baby. Because yes, I feel like our bond is just so close, and because he's a young infant, he just loves mommy the most right now because I'm the one that feeds him, you know, I'm the one that, you know, sleeps with him, all of those things, and the bonding experience with him is just it's the best. But my oldest son, Georgie, the one that I said I never co-slept with him, he was not a cuddler. He didn't like to be like held for very long or cuddled and hugged. He didn't want me to hold him for very long. You know, he liked it for a minute and then he was like, all right, I'm on. Like, leave me alone. I want to go do something. I have the same experience bonding with him and closeness with him that I do with Knox at this moment. He comes to me for everything. He talks to me about everything. He'll come to me out of nowhere and go, Mommy, can I tell you something? I want to talk about something. Or he'll ask me questions, and I can just feel, you know, that he feels comfortable and content with me. That feeling that I get with him is the same feeling I get with Knox. And like I said earlier, they had two different upbringings when you talk about newborn to first year experience. Knox has been co-sleeping with mommy at all times, like literally carried him in carriers constantly, and Georgie, when he was a newborn to a year old, didn't co-sleep with him, didn't snuggle, he didn't like to be carried in a carrier. I mean, all of those kinds of things. He was the total opposite. But as of right now, we have that same kind of relationship and experience together. Just want to point that out. Just because your baby didn't, it doesn't mean that you don't have a bond with your baby, because there's so many other ways to bond with your baby as well. If you breastfeed, I would definitely recommend co-sleeping to you. Now, only if you know, for one, that you're not afraid. Number two, that you know that you are more alert at night and that you can feel your baby, you're not going to roll on your baby, all of those things. And number three would also be that you tell your partner about what you're going to try to do, so that they know, okay, if I go to bed, you're gonna have the baby with you, and I need to make sure that I, stay in my spot, I don't move, all of those kinds of things, and I'm comfortable with it. But if all of those things are good, then I definitely recommend co-sleeping. I really loved it. If you don't breastfeed and you bottle feed, I don't know that I would do this, just because it may be more of a hassle. Give them a bottle, burp them, do all that, then you lay them down. It's almost the exact same thing if you were to just put them in a bassinet. So it just depends, and that's also something that I've read about. These doctors are saying that if you bottle feed, it's not always the best to co-sleep, but if breastfeeding, then it's definitely a great thing to do, especially for your supply and for the breastfeeding, for baby to get everything that they need. That's just what I've read. Obviously, if you do feed your baby with a bottle and you still want to co-sleep and it works for you and you figured it out, then that's great. And I'm so happy for you, because I am a huge advocate for co-sleeping. Like I said, with my first, I was not about it. From everything I had heard, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the worst thing that you can do with your baby. You're not supposed to do it. And now that I've had 4 kids and I've done it twice, I love it. And I think that it is amazing, and that if you can do it and then you want to do it, you should totally try. Obviously, make sure you use all the precautions and just see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you were on the fence about co-sleeping with your new baby, and hopefully this helped you out, helped you decide on whether you should or shouldn't. And if you guys have any questions, I'm always here to answer them in the comments down below, and I will do them to the best of my abilities. If I don't know the answer, or if it's just not something I feel comfortable telling you and stating something that I'm not an expert in, then I will definitely let you know and try to send you some kind of resource that you could read. And like I said earlier in this video, I will have resources linked for you down below as well. From Instagram, there's an account called Isla Grace Sleep, I think is what it's called, and she is the best about debunking the co-sleeping taboo and all the stuff that surrounds it, and that the studies shown were from like the 60s and things have changed now. And I mean, so many great information from her. I've learned a lot from her, so I recommend her on Instagram. But then I also have some websites that I will link as well if you need some more in-depth information on this topic. So I hope you guys check those out. And again, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, because I would love to have you here. And I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.